Hello and welcome. I'm Tony Pratt, your host.
And I'm Sean Sandman Barnes, your co-host
for the Weird News Network. Today, Sandman and I are talking about the 2004 Nimitz Tic Tac UFO incident that you've finally started hearing about recently. Now, the actual information started coming out in 2015 when the eyewitnesses, the naval aviators, and the people working on the aircraft carrier Nimitz broke their disclosure agreements and went public with this information. So what happened was naval aviator David Fravor was flying his plane, and this what he described as a Tic Tac shaped object, which they determined was about 47 feet long, or same length as a jet fighter plane, was really in front of him. It ended up at 3 o'clock, and as he would turn, it would move with him. It just maintained its position relative to his position. And so you don't hear this aspect talked about on the news too much. There's people that have tried to debunk this, saying, well, you know, this thing, and of course later on it descended from like 28,000 feet to 50 feet above the ocean.
Yeah, pretty abrupt.
Yeah, and there was also
straight down
a whole fleet of these. There weren't just one, and
now, I haven't seen any video about a fleet of those. I've heard it mentioned, but I haven't seen a video.
Right,
a fleet of those.
They haven't shown any video of multiple Tic Tac objects. Actually, they haven't shown any video of any Tic Tac objects. There's one that kind of sort of looks like a, you know, one side of it's fatter than the other side. It looks like a microphone sideways, supposed Tic Tac object. But that brings us, and yeah, so when this thing drops at from 28,000 feet to 50 feet above the ocean, which our technology tells us this, it's not just that we're guessing, that is enough G-forces that would, first of all, destroy any aircraft that we know about. It would just break apart.
Wreck the human body as well.
And also, you would have heard multiple sonic booms, like boom, 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 all the way down. And you heard nothing, just smoothly. And whenever these Tic Tac objects moved, they described it as moving from point A to point B at the same speed. In other words, it didn't start off slow and then speed up. It just started at the speed and then stopped at where the next position that it wanted to go to. We don't have any kind of technology that's known.
Right.
This could be our technology. Maybe that's why, leading into our next aspect, because here's what the Pentagon released, and they're saying this is a Tic Tac. This, according to Cyberpol, the International Cyber Policing Agency that deals with all kinds of fraud on the internet. They examined this footage, and I believe them 100% because they show you step by step on their website.
Yeah, I've seen the Cyberpol report.
How these Pentagon released footage is 100% fraudulent.
Now let me interrupt you here for just a second. So getting back to what we were showing here.
Yeah, on the Tic Tac.
This is not the actual object.
No, this
is a digital rendering of what it was described.
Right, that's an artist creation based on the eyewitness testimonies.
And this is a still image of the video footage of the Tic Tac.
Of the fake video footage, yes.
Okay, so here's my thing with the fake video footage.
Right. It could be the actual footage, but they just superimposed a different object, but
how does
the backgrounds are also affected.
Did Cyberpol view and analyze the original footage that was taken of this, or were they analyzing something that
They analyzed the three different videos that the Pentagon released, that the Pentagon says is from the Tic Tac incident, okay? And
They obtained it from the Pentagon, or did they get it offline? Because if they got it offline or from any other source other than directly from the Pentagon, then of course that could have been edited. Absolutely. How do they know that it was the original footage?
well, whatever the footage is, what's being shown on TV that is released directly from the Pentagon, it's the same footage.
Okay.
It is fraudulent. They've 100% proven it. To my satisfaction, it's done with Adobe Photoshop, Adobe After Effects, and it's 100% Adobe fraudulent footage. Now, like you said, there is no footage of a fleet or of multiple objects that came down to 50 feet. It wasn't just one. They all came down to within 50 feet of the ocean surface before they all went into the ocean. And normally when any aircraft or objects go into the ocean, they slow down dramatically. The water slows them down. This did not slow down dramatically. It slowed down slightly, but there was no splash.
How could there not be a splash?
Exactly. How
doesn't
could there
make any
not
sense.
be a splash? Well, it's the same as how could there not be those sonic booms when that's just how physics works with normal technology that we have. Now, obviously, it has some other technology. Maybe it's an interdimensional aspect. Maybe it's, you know, some kind of deflector. I don't know how you can go, because, you know, when you hit water, it's not just soft and luscious.
No.
You know, at that
No.
speed, you know, it becomes like concrete. Even divers, you know,
Exactly.
if you dive into a certain height and you hit wrong, you know, you splat.
Oh yeah, you can only dive from so high without getting
Absolutely.
hurt and or killed.
So, yeah, but
should have
all
been a
of these
splash.
Tic Tac, and here's the
Now,
fake,
that looks more like a Tic Tac than the other one did.
but yet, like I say, it's fatter in the front end than it is on the rear end. It doesn't look like,
So if these images are faked,
yeah,
then you're saying since they were released by the government, by the Navy,
by the Pentagon.
then the Pentagon or someone in the government faked this footage,
Right.
but then still released it and said these are unidentified.
Right.
So what would be the purpose?
incidents?
Why would they do that?
The incidents are real. You know, the naval
Exactly.
aviators
Yeah.
just told the truth. Well, let's go back to the story, okay?
Okay.
That they told. Within 2 minutes of when the naval aviators returned to the aircraft carrier, they were met by high-level naval officers.
Right.
And they had some people with them from part of the government that was not identified as well. It was UFO government agents who told them this incident never happened, and they basically ordered them to sign a non-disclosure agreement that they would never talk about it.
UFO government agents, like
And they
Men in Black type?
They had no, well, you know, I don't know that they were wearing black. I don't know that. They didn't. That detail wasn't revealed in the videos when they were interviewed. But there's some kind. They had clearance. They had high-level security clearance to be there, but they're out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, what were they doing there?
They had no idea how
Yeah.
these people arrived there
Right.
within 2 minutes of this incident happening. Okay, so that was bizarre in itself.
Yeah.
And so why would the Pentagon fake footage? Okay, well, obviously,
That's my question, is why
they
would the
don't
Pentagon
want
fake
you
footage?
to know what the real objects actually look like. Even though it was described as a Tic Tac, and we showed the graphic, the artist's rendering, and then there's these dark objects that they're,
Right.
you know, showing.
Like a top.
And, you know, it's supposed to be radar, sonar, or whatever. I mean, obviously this radar because it's in the air, but the ones under the ocean, they're showing the sonar pictures. Now these, and like this one, let's take this example.
Okay.
When they came to Middle Tennessee and they filmed, they filmed us at a secret UFO vortex in Middle Tennessee.
Right.
This object here is similar two real UFOs that I was filming, that I call Beamcraft, because they're similarly shaped.
Zip, you may have just missed it. In 4 frames at 30 frames per second, this Beamcraft, as I have termed it, because of its similar shape and size to the Billy Myers.
To Billy Myers footage, who's a famous UFO researcher, one-armed guy, you know, been around for years, but, you know, there's questions about that too, but won't go into all that. But they showed almost an identical fake UFO that had already been proven to be a fake on photographs on the cover of Life magazine.
Okay.
You know, in other words, and let me tell you something, after filming UFOs for the past 23 years, whenever you see a dark object like that, 99.999% of the time, it's a bird or a plane or something that's not a UFO. UFOs don't look like that. They you know, general shape of a saucer, yeah. And there are some metallic looking ones, but they don't look like popular movies. So maybe the Pentagon, A, doesn't want the general public to know what they look like, and B, and which may actually be A, they don't want the Russians or the Chinese or our enemies to know what we're doing, because maybe it's our craft. Maybe it's a back-engineered craft, and they knew it was in the area, and that's how they could arrive so quickly, because their guys were on it. I mean, they got it on
good point.
sonar, they got it on radar, and they spotted it by land, and plus the sightings of the pilots themselves. So,
So that would be a good enough reason to want to alter the footage that's out there. But why even put the footage out in the first place?
Disinformation. It's a continuation of the disinformation campaign, like the report you've got there, which is talking about 144 unexplained UFO sightings that they say we don't know what it is. Well, that's a lie. Okay, that's a prevarication. That is not true. They do know. Okay, they are 100% aware of a lot of these UFO things, and they're, you know, they could be back engineering some of this technology of stuff that maybe we're shooting them down. We know we maybe have accidentally shot them down, like Roswell in 1947, accidentally on purpose. I don't know how it really happened, but we know we have back engineered a lot of this technology, and government witnesses, starting in 2001 with the Disclosure Project, Dan Willis inside the government Black Ops programs was talking about, we have identified 57 known alien races on this planet. You know, I mean, that boggles the mind, right? I mean, it's like,
a lot.
That's deep. That's way out there. Yeah, we're just getting at the level of talking about, do UFOs exist? I mean, well, there's something flying around, we don't know what it is. And that's what the Pentagon's doing. They're starting back at the beginning and saying, boom.
Well, the government has definitely used the whole UFO phenomenon in the past to their advantage for disinformation and stuff. Especially if you take a look at Area 51 when they were developing the Blackbird.
Right.
Because it was flying all around out there, and people were saying, "Hey, there's a UFO."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And all a UFO
and the government's
just
like,
means
"Yep, that's a UFO.
It's
That's
unidentified.
exactly what it is."
We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But when the government says it's unidentified, they're lying. They do know what it is. You know,
I don't think they know.
In a
what
lot
it
of
is
cases, they don't
100%.
know everything.
No.
I don't believe that at all. But
in this report here,
Yeah.
that everyone has been waiting for like 6
we're
months
so
for the
excited that they're admitting that something is out there that we don't know what it is.
9 whole pages.
Right.
And I hate to say this. Actually, I don't hate to say this. I call this right down the middle because everybody there's a hashtag UFO Twitter. Everybody on UFO Twitter were just, the closer it got to the date of the release of the report, I mean, Twitter was just blowing up with this UFO Twitter stuff. And I said, they're not gonna tell you anything. It's all gonna be vague stuff, and exactly what it is. That's exactly what they did. And they come up with a thing here on page 5. It's only 9 pages, number one. And on the middle of page 5, it says UAP probably lack a single explanation. And then
That's
they
a
give,
fact.
then
And
they
that's
give
why I
like
coined the
five
term
categories.
UAP in 1998, because unidentified aerial phenomena are not all extraterrestrial craft, which
Right.
the term UFO is associated with, and it was already associated with it in before 98.
UFOs aren't.
Right,
No, that they're not always spacecraft.
there are a lot
They're-
of anomalous objects flying
Yeah.
around that we don't know what they
But-
are, but we know they're not craft. It's probably a living thing.
It gives 5 classifications here:
Mm-hmm.
airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomenon, USG or industry development programs, which basically means that's stuff that the government is developing that they don't want us to know about.
Right.
Foreign adversary systems, which is kind of scary on that, and then the catch-all other. And so it really doesn't. I mean, this
What?
whole
No
thing
weather
is,
balloons?
well,
No.
under other, that fits under other, right? So this whole thing that the whole UFO
No Roman
community has been
candles or
waiting
whatever
for
those
6
things are?
months for is a 9-page report of vague
It's about as
generalities at
useful
best.
as the Air Force's report, Case Closed on Roswell, several years ago, where they
And started a good
explained
fire with it.
these sightings, eyewitnesses who saw 3.5-foot tall aliens, right? That was in 1947, the Roswell crash. They were just confusing that with crash dummies that were dropped
Project Mogul.
from an airplane in 1953, 6-foot tall dummies that looked nothing like 3.5-foot tall aliens. And when asked by the press, how do you explain? How would people confuse something that happened in 1947 with something 6 years later in 1953? It's time compression, right? Your memories get blended over the years. Well, no, that's BS.
One of the things that they talk about in this report is mass hallucinations, which is absolutely boggles my mind that they would think that we would believe that, because that would mean that people in different areas of the world at different dates and times would be having these mass hallucinations of the same thing.
It's just they're putting out
yeah.
obvious, ridiculous explanations, but it's just it's the deflection,
Well, now, in the defense of the government, I'm gonna take a step in that direction here for a second.
Okay.
In defense of the government, when our former president gave that directive that they had to include this in on whatever it was that they were supposed to include it in on, he did not say they had to tell the truth. He just said
President Trump, yeah.
He just said they had to have a report, and there it is.
Well, he said they
9
had to
pages.
release the information.
Yeah.
He wanted all the information they had released.
Yeah, this is
And
not all the information.
they
9 pages is not all
did
the
not
information.
obey him.
No, and they had no intention of obeying him
No.
whatsoever.
Well, he had the right idea for once, yeah, the Pentagon releasing this fraudulent footage, though, just shows you that they do not want you to really get that interested in the subject. They're showing you really boring, dark images for the most part, and where they are and actually, a lot of people were talking about that was the first stuff that they put out. Then they later released the one that looks sort of like a Tic
It
Tac.
also gives an illusion that they are taking this whole thing seriously.
Yeah, and they do take it seriously, but
And-
they're acting like they don't know anything and they're just trying to figure it out, and that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's
And-
talk about a recent disclosure by Professor Haim Eshad from Israel, and he worked in the government for since like '81 in their space program, secret space program as well, and he claims that the United States does have a base on the moon and Mars, or to be more specific, in the moon and in Mars, right? And that we have contact. And this is an award-winning scientist, okay? He's won all kind of awards for secret inventions.
Okay.
Isn't that cool when you work for the secret part of the government and you win 2 awards for inventions that we can't tell you what they are, but this guy's really, good. He's a super scientist. But he's a credentialed individual. He's retired. He has nothing to gain by making up a crazy story. And he claims that we are in contact with alien civilizations that are
What's his proof?
currently on Earth.
I want to know
and
what his proof is.
Well,
'Cause I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of this guy.
there's a lot of proof. This just happened recently.
Okay.
He's a very credible person. Now, I don't know what all proof he has. I haven't researched everything that's public that he's
Right.
done, because he hasn't done a lot of public things. He just came out, he just made this statement, and that there is a Galactic Federation of sorts that actually is exploring the universe and would like us humans, and this could justify the whole government's lies too, that would like us to join them and help out. But as he put it, they would like us to be sane first. They would like us to get our
And
act
there's the
together
problem.
a little bit.
There lies
And
the
that's
problem.
never going to happen. See, so yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I'm playing devil's advocate here. So
Right, you're the skeptic.
He is reputable,
Right.
to use your paraphrase what
Yeah.
you were saying. He's reputable. He's got a good reputation. So he's credible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm credible. I've got a pretty good reputation. So I'm saying that there are lizard people living underground in Montgomery Bell State Park. Does that make it true? No, it doesn't. I got to have proof from this guy. I want some proof.
Yeah, well, maybe he has proof.
Like I said, I haven't heard anything.
I mean, there's a lot of evidence out there. There's mountains of proof and evidence of, UFOs,
Oh yeah.
aliens.
Oh yeah. Look, there's
photographs.
definitely craft from other.
Whether there's a Galactic Federation that's overseeing all the projects, I don't know. But, that's what these inside government witnesses have reported, that we do have contact and that we've made agreement with some of these alien groups to allow them to do research.
Was that Eisenhower
and
did it in the 50s, right?
Right, and I don't know if this involves, a hybridization program, or, they're just upgrading humans' DNA, or, they're actually
If you
implanting, human embryos with alien.
Well, if you believe the story about Eisenhower in the 50s, where he disappeared for a night,
Right.
no one knew where he was, and he was like, "Oh, I was getting my tooth got chipped, and I was at the dentist." No record of that, by the way, but he was supposedly meeting with some alien race, and he was saying, "Okay, I'll let you do whatever you want to do to our people here if you want to, probe them or take them or whatever, but you got to give us your tech."
Right, they agreed to allow a certain amount of abductions in exchange for technology. That was the story. I mean, that's not something that I have firsthand knowledge of. So that's a separate. It's not speculation, but whenever I speculate, I identify that, and when it's not something that I directly created the evidence or found the proof of it, I point that out. But there's a lot of people that have substantiated that story, and of course John F. Kennedy as well was become aware of Majestic 12 and some of these top secret programs with the aliens. So it's all fascinating, and to speculate and think about what the ramifications of that would be, and what would everyone's reactions be if something like that were told, we were told that, hey, the book The Day After Roswell, talks about they took the technology from Roswell and they gave it to different big companies to, play around with, stuff like fiber optics.
Fiber optics, yeah.
And,
that's where we got fiber optics.
they had that real nifty, I guess you would call it metal, that would lay out like aluminum foil, but smooth, and you could cut it with a knife, but it would just seal itself back up, so you couldn't really cut it, and a lot of these things have been reported for centuries, even in the lost books of the Bible. The swaddling cloth of Jesus Christ the Magi cut it with a knife, it didn't affect it. And they also burned it in a fire, and it didn't burn. And so, you know, is that just a miracle of Jesus, or is that some kind of technology? And there's a book called The Revelation of the Magi, where the Magi talk about their journey to witness the birth of Christ. And they were actually following the star that was moving. It wasn't that they weren't astrologers, Chaldeans that were following some kind of astrological maps or anything like that. They were actually physically following this star that was guiding them. And then when they went, and actually the star itself, they called the star child because it was communicating with them.
Yeah, I've heard this story.
And then it came down into the cave where Jesus was born, which was like a rock shelter. It wasn't like going down into the earth cave, because they had it built into a stable with different animals and things. It had a second floor. Anyway, there's a lot of elements of those stories in the lost books. Maybe that's one of the reasons they were removed from the Bible or not included, because a lot of the elements in there are reminiscent of modern day abduction reports and alien contact reports, where there's this bright light, brighter than the sun, but not harsh to your eyes. That you can look at it and it's fine, but it's just super bright. Kind of like Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie.
Dude, there's a going on, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude. Nickel 6-1 Tango, Roger, oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting. Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at that, man. Look at the front.
We get basically no airspeed on it.
Hey, you guys seeing us? What is that? Tower 1 Bogey, 287, 2 miles, Angels 5, shooting hard at 3,000 meters. It jumped! 1,000 meters.